Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Meydan Free Zone, I'm delighted to welcome each one of you to our compliance webinar series 2. We are privileged to have a distinguished speaker with extensive experience and expertise guiding us. Their profound insight and practical knowledge are certain to enhance our understanding and importance of compliance. Mrs. Maryam Saif Al Yammahi from Executive Office will start the webinar, followed by Mrs. Rola Mansour from the Ministry of Economy and Dinesh from Meydan Free Zone. We have Abeer Rashid from Meydan Free Zone who will run our question and answer session. A warm welcome to our esteemed speaker. Without further ado, we invite our first presenter, Maryam Saif Al Yammahi, to commence the knowledge sharing session.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Maryam Al Yammahi, Coordination and Follow-up Executive from National Coordination Section from the Executive Office of Anti-Money Laundering and Counterterrorism Financing. Today, I will cover two topics: the background of the Executive Office and why the UAE is embarking on the compliance journey. The Executive Office of Anti-Money Laundering and Counterterrorism Financing was established pursuant to Cabinet Resolution number 10 of 2021. Among its tasks, it's the oversee the implementation of the National AML CFT strategy and the National Action Plan, and monitor as assess any risks related to AML, TF, financing illegal organization and financing proliferation. Our vision: establish the UAE as a global leader in combating money laundering, counterterrorism financing, and preventing weapons proliferation. And our vision is to facilitate the continued development and maintenance of the reliable financial system with high level of protection against abuse for money laundering and TF and weapons proliferation. Next slide, please. The National AML TF hierarchy. The Executive Office of AML TF is working under the Higher Committee for supervising the national strategy of anti-money laundering and terrorism financing. In the Executive Office, we have three main functions. The first function is the National Policy and Risks, which is responsible for monitoring and assessing national risk, develop and propose policies to mitigate these risks and conduct assessments. The second function is National Coordination and Follow-up, which is oversight of adoption and implementation of national strategy and action plan, in addition to complying and analyzing national AML CTF statistics. The third function, which is lastly, the communication and strategic partnership, which is looking after the international partnership and enhancing the UAE contribution to the global agenda and to promote UAE image positively. Next slide, please. The Executive Office actually is working with approximately 80 agencies. Those you can see our domestic main actors. In the next slide, you can see the global strategic partners. Here we can go to the second topic, which is why the UAE is embarking on the compliance journey. Next slide, please. The commitment of the United Arab Emirates and the regional and international levels. Those are some of the UAE several international treaties in several areas. Vienna Convention 1988, accepted by UAE on 12 April 1990. Palermo Convention 2000, signed by UAE on 9 December 2002. Terrorism Financing Convention 1999, accepted by UAE on 23 September 2005. Merida Convention 2003, signed by UAE on 10th of August 2005, and different other treaties. Next slide, please. Here I will discuss two of the UAE commitments through the FATF-style regional bodies, which are MENA FATF and APG. MENA FATF, the United Arab Emirates, and the founding members of MENA FATF since 2004. Through MENA FATF, the UAE is committed to adopt the implementation of FATF 40 recommendation on combating money laundering and terrorism financing and proliferation, implement the relevant UN treaties and agreements and United Nations Security Council resolution, cooperate among each other to raise compliance with these standards within the MENA region, and to cooperate with other international and regional organizations, institutions, and agencies to improve the compliance worldwide. Work jointly to identify issues of regional nature related to money laundering and terrorism financing, and to share relevant experience and to develop solutions for dealing with them, and take measures throughout the region to effectively combat money laundering and terrorism financing in a way that does not contradict with cultural value, constitutional framework, and legal system in the member countries. The second one is the APG, which is Asia Pacific Group. The United Arab Emirates has obtained the status of observer at the APG in 2023. Through APG, the UAE is committed to adopting the international standard contained in the combating money laundering and the financing of terrorism and proliferation recommendation of the FATF, relevant United Nations conventions and resolution, the procedure for the evaluation of the effectiveness of combating money laundering and the financing terrorism financing or proliferation system, which reflected internationally practice. Here we can start the implementation of FATF standards, which is 40 recommendation FATF are divided into 7 designated areas: the AML-CFT policies and coordination, money laundering and confiscation, terrorism financing and financing for proliferation, prevent measures, transparency and beneficial ownership of legal person and arrangements, power and responsibility of competent authority and other institutional measures, the international cooperation. The importance of evaluating the compliance. FATF use rigorous peer-to-peer review process called mutual evaluation. The process assesses how will countries have implementation the FATF recommendation and ensure that they are main compliance. The sequences of mutual evaluation process, placing the assessed country under enhanced follow-up process, placing assessed country under regular follow-up process. After 1 year of adoption, the mutual evaluating report, countries that fell short may face potential gray listing or blacklisting, leading to significant economic repercussions. These statements are made following to a depth or lengthy evaluating of a country compliance with the FATF recommendations. Next slide, please. Consequences of non-compliance with FATF standards. To be added to the FATF gray list or blacklist, the country is partial or complete economic isolation. A gray list, it means the jurisdiction face an increased monitoring from the FATF until it's able to fully comply with the FATF standards and demonstrate that the country has been able to successfully eliminate terrorism financing effectively and money laundering activities. The blacklist means the country that are through to pose a high risk of ML, TF, PF, and do not show any progress along FATF action plans. Next slide, please. Listed countries are denied access to international banking network and face difficulties in obtaining multilateral development funds such as IMF, World Bank, regional development banks, along with bilateral financial assessment as well. The country ties with the foreign bank and investors from the countries that are member of the FATF are restricted if on the gray list or severed entirely if in a blacklist. The 3 countries on a blacklist, as FATF mentioned: Iran, the Democratic People Republic of Korea, and many more, are all subject to international sanction packages. In the end, FATF grey list or blacklisting comes with a heavy economic and financial cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maryam. Now we're moving on with Ms. Rola from Ministry of Economy to share her presentation on ultimate beneficiary owners procedures. To you, Rola.
Thank you, Abeer. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rola Mansour from Ministry of Economy. I am Senior Specialist. Next slide, please. Why we are gathering today? UBO awareness is essential for maintaining the integrity and stability of the control environments and protecting individual, business, and society from harmful effects of abuse legal person for illegal activities. It's very important to keep ourselves updated with the latest regulatory requirements and mitigation measures so that we can recognize and prevent illicit activity. Next. What is an ultimate beneficiary owner, UBO? UBO is a natural person that owns or controls the company either through direct ownership or by other means of control, such as voting rights. How to identify UBO? There is 3 steps. First one, control through ownership. Identify natural person who directly or indirectly own 25% or more than shares or hold 25 of more than voting rights in the legal persons. Second step, control through other means. Identify any person who controls the legal entity, chairman of the board of CEO of that company. Control through positions hold. Identify any person who holds the position of senior managing officer. Next. Why UBO identification is important? To proper identification of UBOs prevent entities from being misused for money laundering and terrorist finance purpose. It enables related stakeholders to properly manage the risk of registered entity, ensure full transparency between entities and registers. Next. UBO framework at the national level. The UAE is committed to combating illegal activities such as abusing of legal person and arrangement. UBO enhance the CFT framework and unify the minimum UBO requirements for entities incorporated the UAE through issuing the following cabinet decision. Cabinet Decision number 109 of 2023 regulating beneficiary ownership procedures. And the second one, Cabinet Decision number 152 of 2023 regarding the administration penalty imposed on violation of Cabinet 109. Next. Cabinet 109 requirements of legal person. Provide the registers with the basic company information, obtain and maintain appropriate, accurate, and up-to-date information of beneficiary owner, maintain the registers of beneficiary owner and update any changes within 15 days, maintain the register of partnership of shareholders and update any changes within 15 days, provide the registers with the information contained in both register within 60 days from the registration date, provide additional information requested by register within 14 days from the date of request. Next. If the company is subject to dissolution or liquidation, the liquidation shall provide the register with the register of beneficiary owner, partners, or shareholder within 30 days from the date of liquidation appointment. Keep the information contained in the register beneficiary owner, partners, of shareholder, as well as any other data as requested to maintain under the enforced legislation. Provide the register with any amendment made to the date within 15 days from the date of a change. Next. Advise company to provide information of beneficiary owner or nominal director within the specific period. Issue templates, notice, and guideline related to the register's procedure to the regulation of beneficiary owner, automates and classify obtained data for easier retrieve and exchange with the concerned bodies, provide required data for the NAR and any other data requested by the ministry. Next. Keep the basic data and ensure the accuracy, update, and accessibility to the public. Obtain and ensure the accuracy of beneficiary owner data up to the company registration. Keep all registers for the 5 years from the date of termination of the legal person by dissolution, liquidation, or striking off. Next. Now we'll discuss about Cabinet 132. Non-compliance with the Cabinet Decision 109/2023 by legal person implies administration penalty enforced under the Cabinet 132/2023. The violation of any of the 16 clauses of of Cabinet Decision 132 carries written warning at the first measures, followed by the second enforced in the form of financial penalty ranging between 5,000 to 50,000 dirhams. If the violation not remediates, the registrar applies the third administrative measures, which include the financial penalties between 10,000 to 100,000, alone or encouraging with the suspension of the trade license. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rola, for this informative presentation. Now, moving on with Mr. Dinesh from Meydan Compliance Team to share his presentation on UBO Transparency. To you, Dinesh.
Right. Thank you so much, Abeer. So good morning, everyone. My name is Dinesh. I'm the Senior Compliance Manager here at Meydan Free Zone. So thank you for attending today's webinar, and I would like to thank the Executive Office and the Ministry of Economy for their collaboration. So today I will give you an overview of legal persons and walk you through the importance of UBO transparency. So by the end of this webinar, you will have a good understanding about ultimate beneficial ownership, which is a vital cornerstone in the foundation of transparency, accountability, and integrity within modern enterprises. Right. So without further ado, let's get started. And first of all, I would just like to ask the audience one question. So are you familiar with the concept of ultimate beneficial owners? So you have about 30 seconds to answer. You have 20 seconds. All right, 10 seconds. Okay, right. So let's see the poll results. So I can see 68% of the audience say that they are familiar with the concept of ultimate beneficial owners, and 32% do not know the concept of beneficial owners. So you're tuned into the right session. So let's delve into the intricate world of ultimate beneficial ownership. Right. So okay, moving on. Okay. So next slide, please. Okay. As per the UAE regulations, right, any person owning more than 25% of shares or controlling more than 25% of voting rights, or the person exercising control over a company, is termed as an ultimate beneficial owner, right? So the ultimate beneficial owner can only be an individual or a natural person, as they call it, right? And in the event where there is a legal entity, right? So in the event where the legal entity is a listed company or wholly owned by the federal government of United Arab Emirates, then they are also treated as natural persons for the purpose of regulations, right? So this is what a UBO is, basically a person who ultimately owns the company, right? So now let's look at why UBO is important, right? So knowing the ultimate owner or controller of a legal entity promotes transparency and accountability within the business environment, right? Identifying UBOs will help companies comply with UAE regulations and avoid legal penalties. And by revealing these, the individuals behind complex corporate structures, right, transparency in beneficial ownership will also prevent financial crimes such as money laundering, bribery, tax evasion, and terrorist financing. Right. So now let's look at the next slide, which is Meydan Free Zone policy on UBOs. Right. So for Meydan Free Zone, UBO verification is an essential part of the Meydan onboarding process. So all applicants need to submit and declare accurate UBO information, which is up to date. Right, and this should be added to the company's UBO register for transparency and for ease of reference in the future. Right, and all companies incorporated in Meydan will have to create a record of UBOs within 60 days of license issuance. Right, so in addition to the onboarding stage, the compliance team will verify the UBOs at regular intervals, like during license renewals or amendments, and also during periodic inspections. Right. Okay. So now let's look at in the next slide. Let's see how we can identify the beneficial owners and controllers, right? So there is what is known as a threefold procedure to determine ultimate beneficial ownership, right? This is also known as a cascading approach or process, right? So the respective steps mentioned on this slide should be followed until the ultimate beneficial owner has been correctly identified, right? So the step one is to identify the natural person who directly or indirectly holds or controls, an equal or more than 25% of shares or voting rights or ownership of an entity, right? So this is the first step in identifying a beneficial owner. And if this fails, then there's another step which we can follow. And so we need to identify the individuals that exercise control through other means such as financing or contractual associations. So the second step is to see if they have any control over the business, right? And the final stage is where we have to identify those who exercise control through positions. For example, a director with decision-making power or executive control. Right, so these are the three steps in which you can identify a beneficial owner, right? Okay, so moving on to the next slide. You can see we have here a basic UBO structure. This is quite a simple and it's very straightforward structure, right? So if you see here, the company A is owned by company B, which is again owned by 6 different individuals, right? And if you can see this, the share percentages, all of them holds 5% except for the person number 4 who owns about 75% of the shares. So in this sense, through ownership, person number 4 will be deemed as the UBO, right? So this is a very simple and a straightforward structure. So we can see who owns the most number of shares and then determine if this is the UBO, right? So sometimes, a UBO isn't always who owns the most shares, and it could be someone in a higher position who controls the company and makes key decisions, right? And for this purpose, we sometimes also, public records can also be used to determine beneficial owners. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. Right, this is a bit of a complex UBO structure, right? So in a complex arrangement like this, so you can see company A is owned by a natural person, Mr. Y, and then company A is also owned by 2 legal entities, company B and C, which are again further owned by Mr. X and Mr. Z. Right, so if you look at the percentages, you can see that Mr. Y directly owns 70% shares of the company, so will become a direct a UBO, right, of this company, whereas the others will hold less number of percentages. However, there could be more complex structures, there could be different layers, nominee arrangements, making it very challenging to determine who the true beneficiaries are, right? So it can actually obscure the identification of ultimate beneficial owners, right? So that's that. And moving on to the next slide. Right. So now let's look at some strategies for identifying complex UBO structures. So usually identifying complex UBO structures can be very challenging due to the intricate ownership structures and layers of corporate entities, right? Which are often employed to conceal the true ownership, right? So we have a bit of strategies here, like doing an enhanced due diligence, and you can utilize technology, artificial intelligence, blockchain for UBO identification and verification. Then again, collaboration with regulatory authorities can also help us identify complex UBO structures. So by combining these strategies and leveraging available resources, organizations can enhance their ability to identify complex ultimate beneficial owners and promoting transparency and accountability in their corporate structures. Right. Okay. Next slide. Let's look at the risks associated with UBO structures, with very complex UBO structures. So you can see that one of the top highlighted ones is money laundering and terrorist financing. So often criminals use, complex structures to hide, and they are exploited, to launder money or criminal proceeds, and also to finance terrorism. So, and also tax evasion can also be another reason why they have, they use complex structures. And one of the key areas is now, if you take ultimate beneficial owner KYC and CDD requirements, they play a fundamental role in preventing money laundering and the misuse of these legal entities to hide the illegal activity or funding of criminal and terrorist activities. So KYC and EDD play a fundamental role in preventing all of this, right? So these are some of the risks associated with the complex UBO structures. All right, so next we'll move on to another a poll. So I'd like to ask the audience if they maintain a UBO register in your organization. So you have 30 seconds to answer. Okay, you have 10 more seconds. Okay, right. So let's see what the audience have to say. Okay, so I think again 69% says they maintain a UBO register, whereas 31% did not answer the question. So it's fine. So if you maintain a UBO register in your organization, that's good news. So if you move on to the next slide, let's see the importance of maintaining this UBO register. Right. So there are certain regulatory implications if you do not maintain a UBO register, right? So like I mentioned earlier, identifying and verifying UBO is an essential part of the onboarding process, right? And for us to do due diligence and for enhanced risk assessment. So not having a UBO register could mean there could be, there are lots of internal regulators and international standards that we need to adopt in the UAE. And the Cabinet Decision 132 of 2023 and Cabinet Decision 109 of 2023, again, they mark as a significant step towards transparency in the UAE's corporate landscape for UBOs. And so in order to uphold these regulations and to comply with these requirements, it's very important to maintain what we call a UBO register in any organization, right? Okay, so moving on to the next slide. Right. So companies need to ensure that they take efforts in order to improve their UBO transparency, right? They could be in their corporate governance reforms or public registers of beneficial ownership, right? Will help improve transparency to deter financial crime and support law enforcement efforts, right? So as a company, UBO transparency is very important, and and you should make sure you have very up-to-date information and accurate information on your UBOs, right? So next slide, to summarize everything. Ultimate beneficial ownership transparency is very important to prevent money laundering and the misuse of legal entities, and to hide the illegal activities of funding criminals and terrorism, right? And so UBO identification and transparency is very important, and companies have a responsibility to identify, verify, and disclose this information, to regulatory authorities. And they can also leverage like technology and conduct due diligence in order to, actively achieve and maintain UBO transparency. So call to action, you need to prioritize UBO transparency in your AML efforts. You need to also stay informed about regulatory developments and industry best practices, and also engage in collaborating and knowledge sharing initiatives to enhance UBO transparency across the industry. Right. So that's from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Dinesh, for this really interesting presentation. So now we are moving on to questions and answers part. So we'll go through some of the questions which was raised by the audience. I can see here that so many people are interested to know more about the UBO register. So we'll have for Dinesh some of the questions related to this. If you could just share some of the possible answers with the audience, like is there a template for UBO register, and what details of the UBO needs to be present in the UBO register? To you, Dinesh.
Right. Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, Menu, and I can give a quick answer to this. So there is a template for a UBO register, and this is found on our website as well. But as a company, you can have your own UBO register, and I can just tell you the minimum information that is required. So in your UBO register, you will need to have the full name of the ultimate beneficial owner, their nationality, date of birth, place of birth, their residence, their travel documents like passports, identity cards, right, and their country of issuance and expiry dates. So, and also there are three pieces of key information that is often overlooked, which is the basis of UBO, how you became the UBO, and the date of becoming a UBO, and also the date that you cease to exist as a UBO. So these are a few key elements that should be incorporated in your UBO register. Right. I hope that clarifies,
Right.
Abeer. Yeah.
Yeah, great. All right, Dinesh, there is one more question related to UBO register. Is that where can I find? Oh, sorry. Is it a mandatory to maintain a UBO register? And some of the link answers, some of the link questions as well, is to where do we have to submit the register?
Right. So the simple answer is, you have to maintain, all companies should maintain a UBO register, annotate any changes if there are any changes, and this information should be submitted to your regulatory authority. So it could be Meydan Free Zone, if your business is incorporated with us. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Dinesh. Another question is that in corporate shareholder structure, what documents are required for UBO verification?
Right. So, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to verification, right? So it often involves a combination of checks and processes that will vary based on the specific level of risk and jurisdictions. But in a sense, we require certain legal documents, such as, a share register, which gives out the list of, key shareholders, which can help us identify the UBOs, right? So sometimes in a complex structure, we might request for a UBO structure chart in order to identify, between different levels, who the ultimate beneficial owner is. And also in the event, for example, a trust is involved, then we may also request like a trust deed in order to verify the beneficiaries and to identify the ultimate beneficial owners.
All right, thank you, Dinesh. Also, we have a question here. Okay, where can I find the more details about the new UBO laws of UAE? Would you please just guide them through like what kind of sources that we would be available for them to get the right information on that?
Right. So I believe you can actually visit the Ministry of Economy website to view more information about, the Cabinet Decision 109 and 132 regarding the violations and the laws, pertaining to ultimate beneficial owners.
Great. I've seen so many engagement from the audience this time, and there are also so many repeated questions, and I guess already been answered by Dinesh, and also Rola had also shared her couple of answers on the questions sent by audience. Okay. We can go for another question here where I can see, how does the concept of beneficial ownership transparency contribute to broader efforts to combat financial crime and corruption? To you, Dinesh, please, if you could just elaborate on this and give the possible answer, please.
Right, sure. So in the UAE, regulations have been introduced to govern ultimate beneficial ownership, right, which is a crucial step in increasing transparency and fighting financial crime and corruption. So by following these regulations, businesses in the UAE will help uphold, international standards set by, organizations like the Financial Action Task Force, and also, a transparent disclosure of beneficial ownership will help us identify who the true owners and the true controllers of legal entities are, and this will prevent the misuse of complex corporate structures for activities like money laundering and corruption. So the transparency will also, support global efforts against illicit finance by, aiding in detection and prevention of crimes, right? So it will also demonstrate the UAE's commitment to adhering to international standards and fostering a transparent and compliant, financial environment.
Thanks, Dinesh. Thanks for giving all these answers. So I have seen some questions here which was already been answered by Rola, as I said earlier. I'll just go through some of these questions and I would elaborate the answers as well. For example, one of the questions is, how does the UAE's legal framework address the issue of nominee, shareholders, and directors concerning UBO transparency? So thanks for Rola. She had shared her answers here on this question. As she had clarified that the legal person should provide the information, and there is a form by authority to identify the nominees, shareholder, or directors, or through the proof of address from governments. Okay, this is one of the oh, sorry, I mean power of attorney. Okay, now there is an interesting also question from one of the new registers here in UAE, who's have published his new registered company, and interesting to know more about maintaining the register for UBO. So the answer was the question that how to maintain the register of UBO. And Dinesh had already given the answers also for this question. However, I will reshare the answers given by Ms. Rola. Is the ultimate beneficiary or owner is the form with regulate authorities you need to provide regards to compliance mandatory. If you are under DNFBPs, you need to have your own policy. If not, you are required to provide ultimate beneficiary owner information only. I hope this satisfies and gives the answers to the questions. I guess there are no more questions raised by the audience. There are so many repeated questions, and I'd like to thank you. Thanks all of you for sharing your experience and insights on that. We will wrap up for now, and I guess please, if I would like to request you to scan the QR code and share your valuable feedback with us. To make you aware that this webinar is recorded, and if you miss anything, the recording that recaps covered everything was covered in this webinar will be available in Meydan social media channels for your review at any time when needed. Okay. So I'd like to thank you all I'd like to thank all the participants, speakers, and audience for being part of this webinar. Thank you for joining, and have a great day.